What is going on, Michigan fans? It's Clayton Sayfie here with the Wolverine.com to break down Michigan's 35-7 win over UNLV Saturday at the Big House. Make sure to like this video if you've loved what you've seen from J.J. McCarthy. Let's get that like count up to 300 after this game, because I know Michigan fans are absolutely thrilled with the way their quarterback has played. So hit that thumbs up button on YouTube. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Wolverine. And head to thewolverine.com, $1 for your first month of premium access. That offer for all new subscribers. So check us out over at thewolverine.com. We got a ton of content up over there from the game. Let's start with our number one takeaway, and it ties right in. It's J.J. McCarthy. I mean, he was sensational again. That's a second straight week, and it's clear now. I know these aren't world beater opponents in ECU and UNLV, but his growth from last season to this year is very evident in so many different areas. But he's 22 of 25 in this game, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, both of them to Roman Wilson, had the 47-yarder on a beautiful pass. They've done a fantastic job of running play action. He led the nation last year with over 13 yards per attempt on play action passes, but they used it less than just about anybody. And, I think a lot of that was being a little bit more vanilla. In some of these games, they knew they were going to win. Some of the games they won big, not opening up the playbook. But they've gone to it a little bit more early on this season to work on it. They said they're trying to marry it up with some of the early down run game stuff, and they've really done it to perfection. Literally, JJ so far this year, 12 of 12 with that touchdown on play action passes this season. He was 6 of 6 in both games, but even better this game. And you can really see them sucking in the defense when you're given a play fake to a Blake Corum, especially, or a Donovan Edwards, or one of Michigan's running backs, just because of the threat that those guys pose. But I thought JJ was fantastic, going through his progressions, moving his feet. We did see him use his feet in this game a little bit more too. He had 3 rushes for 38 yards, had a 17-yarder that set up a Blake Corum touchdown, had a quarterback draw up the middle that picked up a first down. So you're kind of just seeing him pick his spots, be really comfortable. It feels like the game's moving slow for him. Now, he's not getting pressured much. Credit to the offensive line. They haven't allowed a sack yet. He doesn't have, future NFL guys flying into, in his face and everything like that. So we'll see how he plays as the year goes on and as the competition gets tougher. But so far, so good from J.J. McCarthy. You see the stats there. I mean, 8 different receivers, several guys with 3 or more catches. It was nice to see Tyler Morris get involved there. After being limited in week 1, Cornelius Johnson gets going once again. And of course, Roman Wilson becoming that favorite target. 5 touchdowns already now for Roman Wilson. He had 4 last year receiving, 2 rushing, but 3 receiving touchdowns in 2021. So he's already surpassed and has a career high now in receiving touchdowns. It seems to be J.J. McCarthy's favorite target at this point. Let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. And it was really another dominant performance by the Michigan defense in this game. They were living in the backfield. Michigan with 10 tackles for loss in this game, just the 3rd time they've had double-digit tackles for loss since the beginning of last season, first time of this year, obviously. 5 sacks after none last week. I know East Carolina was getting the ball out quickly. Michigan still got a decent amount of pressure, but every guy we've talked to throughout the week, and some of them after the game too, said they were frustrated by the lack of sacks in the opener. Jalen Harrell said it. Braden McGregor said it. Kenneth Grant said they were talking all week about how they need to get sacks. Well, Derek Moore gets the first one for Michigan in the first quarter. They get 4 in the second quarter. Jalen Harrell with 1.5 sacks. Kenneth Grant with 1.5 sacks. We'll talk about him in just a second. Mason Graham, Chris Jenkins, each with half a sack. So I just thought the defense did a really good job. And Doug Brumfield, UNLV's quarterback, is more mobile. So he was trying to extend some of those plays. And really they came back to bite him just a little bit because he was trying to buy time. But those Michigan defenders were relentless, obviously very athletic, getting back there to the passer. So really good stuff, I thought, from the Michigan defensive line once again. That includes against the run. This includes sack yardage, so obviously factors in there. But UNLV with just 9 rushing yards through 3 quarters before Michigan really emptied the bench there in the fourth quarter. But, another dominant display. And Kenneth Grant is a guy that we have to talk about a little bit on his own individually because he's been so disruptive. And again, there's the caveat with these games with everything that we got to see it against a better competition. But he has been pretty much unblockable for good chunks of these first two games. He just looks like, one of those typical SEC Georgia defensive linemen. I'm not saying he's playing like an elite lineman yet. We got to see that. I need to see more of him, but he has the look of it, and the production so far against these weaker opponents, again, has been really, really good. He has the batted pass on a 3rd and 10. I thought that was great, showing that he has another tool in his toolbox there. But constant disruption, getting off of double teams, eating up double teams when he has to. He has just been really, really good. Braden McGregor also deserves a shout out there. A couple really nice tackles, shoestring tackles. He seems to, really like that, have that in his bag. Thought he played really well against the run. And, we'll talk about depth in a second here with some of the backups disappointing, 3rd, 4th stringers. But Michigan's depth on the defensive line is real. And there are, it's a cliche, but there are about 7, 8, 9, 10 starters, quote unquote, that are on this defensive line right now. Takeaway number 3. Let's stick with the defense. We saw Will Johnson for the first time this year coming back from his injury. He played a few snaps in the second quarter there. They said he's fine. Even though he came out, they just wanted to get him a few game reps. So I think we'll see him get worked in a little bit more as time goes on, assuming there are no setbacks. No Rod Moore this week again. McCarthy Page was limited at safety last week, but did not play. He was ruled out before this game. But it seems like he's getting close as well. Maybe that was by design after getting him some snaps last week. Keon Saab, I thought, was solid again, wasn't as active. Zeke Berry, another sophomore, looked like he got banged up early on a special teams play. But really the takeaway here is I thought that the secondary was a little, some good, some bad in this game. Few too many missed tackles. Quentin Johnson led the team with 3 missed tackles, according to PFF. Keon Saab did miss a tackle. Keyshawn Harris missed a tackle. Late in the game, Cam Calhoun missed a tackle. So really the takeaway is that some of the depth there, it's good they're developing that. And Jay Harbaugh said it's a blessing in a way that these guys have this opportunity to play. But I just think this defensive line or defensive backfield is going to look a hell of a lot better with Will Johnson, Rod Moore, McCarthy Page, all healthy back there. And I know that's not some sort of bold statement, but it was kind of clear in this game that they missed those guys. Mike Sainer still thought pretty solid in this one as well after a big game in the opener. And it's really nice to have him back there, his leadership for those guys on the back end, especially the young guys that are stepping in for the first time. Let's move over to the offense again. Michigan's run game, kind of a mixed bag there as well. Looking at the numbers here, Michigan rushing 33 times for 179 yards, 3 touchdowns, all of them to Blake Corum. They did get some stuff in the untraditional run game. Cornelius Johnson with a 26-yard rush on a little bit of a reverse. J.J. McCarthy, as we mentioned, 38 yards on the ground. Jack Tuttle with a 14-yard rush before he got hurt. And then a couple guys late in the game getting carries, 2-3 yards, things like that. Look, I mean, Blake Corum said it after the game. He was not satisfied with his performance. I thought he looked pretty darn good, but we all know what an absolutely prime Blake Corum is. So you kind of have to compare it to the expectations. You kind of have to compare it to the level we know he can play at. And he said he's going to get there. It's going to come. Mike Hart said that he told him, hey, stop dancing around back there. Stop hesitating. Just go. And the big plays will happen on their own. Don't try to find them. So I think Blake Corum's getting there. And in 2-3 weeks, I don't think we're going to even remember that he was, trying to shake off some of the rust early on in the season. Maybe we'll remember it, but it will be completely irrelevant because he's going to get back to that level. He had 15 carries, 80 yards in this game. They didn't break the big run, which I think is really the biggest thing. And Mike Hart said that too after the game, where if they would have broken one of those, they would have been over 200 yards and nobody would have been saying, hey, what about the run game? In the blocking department, I thought Michigan got really good push on the offensive line on several different plays, including with Blake Corum down at the goal line, scoring his 3 touchdowns fairly easily. And credit goes to him there too, but there was really good push on other plays. There were some missed assignments, including with the tight ends. I think they got to clean that up a little bit. And you got to be confident that Sharon Moore will, him being back after his 1-game suspension on the sideline for Michigan, calling the plays. I thought that looked fantastic. Loved the way he mixed things up. And then also with the offensive line, you got to believe there's going to be more adjustments that he will make going forward. But Donovan Edwards, got to talk about him as well. His stat line here is 6 carries, 9 yards, long of 4 yards. Now, we did have a pass or a reception that was really nice. It was basically a run play, JJ tossing it forward to him as they do. I thought that was good. Two things were true about Donovan Edwards' performance. One, I didn't think he ran that well. I thought he got the minimum amount that he could have gotten on some plays. I think he probably knows that, and we'll see that when he goes back and watches the film, and I'm sure he already has. Two, I also don't think there was a ton to get on some of his runs. It seemed like it's not like the offensive line was blocking better for Blake Corum, or even half the time knows who's back there, but it just seemed to be whatever it was, the plays with how the defense was lining up, missed assignment here, missed assignment there, that Donovan Edwards had less to work with than Blake Corum. So I think it'll even out, but it's clear to me right now that Blake Corum is going to be the bell cow. He's going to be the guy, and Donovan Edwards will be the change of pace. He'll be the guy that plays on the field with him at the same time, in the slot, in the backfield, out wide, and that's still going to be a really dangerous combination. Last takeaway of this game, real quick, the backups, a little bit disappointing again in the fourth quarter. It's too bad Jack Tuttle got hurt after running out of bounds, getting pushed out of bounds on a late hit. We have to be clear about something too, though. In many cases, this was Michigan's 3s and 4s against UNLV's 2s. But some disappointing stuff. I thought Davis Warren, a rough interception from him against zone coverage. Really no excuse for that one, especially out of a guy who you would think wants to become Michigan's starter down the road. Small sample size, one play, but I think he knows he's going to have to clean that up. Defense allows a 20-yard run right up the middle for a touchdown. Those guys committing 2 penalties, the backups there in the fourth quarter, and Michigan averaging only 4.9 yards per play with the backups in. Meanwhile, UNLV at 7.2 yards per play. And, just like ECU last year, I know that was on a sad field goal, but the UNLV backups able to score and, not get shut out. Again, something that Michigan is striving for, something that they've talked about. So still need to see a little bit more out of those guys. But at the same time, again, the 2s were kind of mixing in at a lot of positions early on in the game, and this was 3s and 4s in some cases, some freshmen out there for their first time. So it's still valuable experience. But Michigan with a 35-7 win over UNLV. Bowling Green next week. Last game without Jim Harbaugh. Sharon Moore will be the interim head coach. Keep it locked at thewolverine.com for all of your Michigan football coverage all week long, and we will see you next time.